Kia ora koutou. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lex, an advisor here at Charity Services, and I'm joined by Dawn, a capability accountant. Today, we're going to complete an online annual return with you using the example performance report we created for our previous webinar. The webinar is directed at charities that complete their annual return online who are reporting at Tier 4 and who have already completed their performance report. If you've not completed your performance report yet, we recommend watching our webinar, Introduction to Using the Tier 4 Not-for-Profit Standard, first. A link to that webinar was included in the invitation email you received. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. Can you hear us? Make sure your speakers are unmuted and check your internet if you're having trouble hearing us. In the unlikely event that our sound cuts out, we'll work through any technical difficulties and aim to be back in touch with you as soon as possible. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you an email with the recording link and any resources we discuss. The first step in filing online is logging into your dashboard. Go to charities.govt.nz and click on Log In, either at the top of the page or on the side of the page. Log in by entering your charity's registration number, for example, CC12345, and your charity's password that you've set. You'll also need to tick the box to state that you're not a robot. This will take you to your dashboard where you can view all of your existing information, update your charity's information, and create and submit your annual returns. If Create Annual Return is grayed out, you probably have previous tasks in progress that need to be completed or deleted first. Have a look around your dashboard for anything marked as in progress. It should have a green Continue button and a red Delete button next to it. Once you delete or complete the previous task, you can then create your annual return. Please note, you can only create an annual return if your dashboard shows that an annual return is required, as seen on the previous screen. Now you'll need to confirm the reporting period that the annual return is for. If you only have one annual return to file, this will automatically show the correct year. However, if you have multiple annual returns outstanding, you must make sure you select the correct year for what you're filing now. Before you start the annual return, we recommend you also go through the checklist. This checklist tells you everything that you need to already have in order to complete the annual return form online. First few pages of the annual return form show your charity's currently registered information. Make sure you review that information is correct and up to date. Your charity's legal name is the full legal name of your charity. It must be the same everywhere that you're registered. For example, if you're an incorporated society at the New Zealand Companies Office, it needs to be the same as that registered name. Other name is if your organization uses any other name to operate, you need to list them here. Date of registration and registration number cannot be changed in this form as they're set when the organization becomes registered. Balance date is the date your financial year ends, and it cannot be changed while completing an annual return. If you need to change your balance date, delete this annual return and complete an update details form instead. Inland revenue number and NZBN. If you have these numbers and they're not already listed, you can add these into the form now. Postal address. If your listed postal address has changed, click on the change my postal address box and enter your new address. If your physical location, that is your street address, is different to your postal address, select that option and enter your street address. Areas of operation are where your charity operates. If this has changed since you became registered, select the new areas here. Charity identity. First question is around if your organization is Kaupapa Māori. If your charity may consider itself Kaupapa Māori if its primary purposes are to support Māori communities. A charity would be unlikely to consider itself Kaupapa Māori if its focus was mainly on outcomes for the wider population. For Pacifica charities, you may consider itself a Pacifica charity if its activities serve Pacifica people. Alternately, it could be made up of people who identify as Pacifica. And for the last question about being established to support ethnic communities in New Zealand and or overseas, you tick this box if the charity was set up with a primary purpose for supporting ethnic communities. New Zealand government defines ethnic communities as communities composed of Asian, African, continental European, Latin American, and Middle Eastern cultures. Charity details is a section that's published on the public register. So if you have a public email address, phone number, or social media, you can list them here. Don't include any private information in these fields as they are publicly available. For primary contact, this information is not publicly available and it's used by charity services when we need to contact you. Primary contact is also the person who can reset the login password. Please make sure that it's always kept up to date and that the email address you provide is accessible and regularly monitored. You have the option to provide an alternative contact person, but this is not required. We do recommend it in case of emergencies or changes in staff, though. Once the information on this page is correct, you can continue to the next page, Officer Details. This page shows your currently registered officers. If any of your officers have changed, you can update that here. To remove an officer, click Remove and enter the date they stopped being an officer. You'll also need to state the reason they're no longer an officer. To change the position an officer holds, click on their current position and type in the new one. To add an officer, click the blue Add a New Officer button. State whether they're an individual or body corporate, and fill in their information. Make sure that you know the officer's date of birth and address, as you need those to finish the process, even though they're not published on the public register. Once your officers are all up to date, you can continue to the next page, Purpose and Structure. The Purpose and Structure page shows your currently registered charitable purpose, legal structure, and activities. These can be edited on this page if they've changed. A charitable purpose is a description of your charitable purpose or mission that you enter, and it will be displayed on the public register. For most charities, this information can also be found in your financial statements or performance report. Your charity's structure could be a trust, society, or company, and it's usually stated in your rules. If you're not sure whether or not your organization is incorporated, you can check on the New Zealand Companies Office. For main activity, sector, and beneficiaries, these are all selected from a drop-down menu. Please make sure the information listed here is still correct. If it's wrong or if it's changed, you can select a new option by clicking the arrow on the right side of the box. Next is a question about generating funds. Consider the main activities that your charity undertakes. Do you raise funds for other organizations or provide funding to them? For example, a charity that raises funds nationally and passes those on to local charities in order for them to provide goods or services to their communities. That would be different from a charity whose main purpose is to provide goods or services directly. An example of this would be a charity that provides counseling services directly to people. The next question is about whether or not your organization has reviewed its governance procedures within the last 3 years. Your governance procedures are required to be reviewed at least once every 3 years. Each charity is responsible for doing this in a way that suits them best, so the process will be different for everyone. If you have completed a review within the past 3 years, click Yes and tell us the date the review was complete. You also need to make sure that the rules the organization has with us are up to date. If the rules we have on the register have changed, click Yes and upload a new version. You'll also need to provide the date the change happened and give a short explanation of what has changed. When you've answered each question on this page, you can continue to the next page, Your People. The Your People page is where you tell us how many people your charity paid to do work and how many volunteers and volunteer hours were worked for your charity this year. Paid full and part-time employees includes anyone who is paid to work for your charity in an average week, including yourself. Total employee hours. You'll need to add up the total hours that all paid employees work, including yourself, in an average week. For volunteer hours, volunteers are people who work for your charity without pay. Tell us how many people in total volunteered for your charity in this reporting period. Include yourself if you're not paid for your work. When completing this page, make sure you consider your officers and board members. If they're fulfilling their duties without being paid, then they are volunteers. In the same way, if they're being paid to complete their duties, then they need to be included in the paid employees section. It is very unlikely that any organization will have 0 volunteers and 0 employees. If your charity does anything, financial or non-financial, then the people or person involved should be recorded here. Once this page is complete and you have entered all of your employee and volunteer information for the whole year, you can move on to the next page where you'll select the tier you used to prepare your performance report. As you've already determined what tier you're reporting at when you prepare your performance report, you'll already know this when you get to this page. As Alfina After School Care Trust used the Tier 4 not-for-profit standard to prepare its performance report, we are selecting Tier 4 here as well. After selecting Tier 4, you'll see that 3 more questions appear that you need to answer on this page. Overseas operations. Our example charity only operates locally in one location. so we're selecting no for this question. Donee status. This is any donations of money or koha your charity has received this financial year. This does not include grants received for specific purposes. Our example charity has not, so selecting no to this question. If you answer yes, though, a second question will appear asking if your charity spent at least 75% of its funds towards charitable purposes within New Zealand. To answer this, you need to compare the proportion your charity spent on charitable purposes overseas with the total amount your charity spent. Control relationships. Your charity would be considered controlled by another if all three of these are true. Power over the other organization. The other charity has existing rights that give them the ability to direct your charity's activities. Access to benefits. The other charity has access to benefits such as profits or services from being involved with your charity. And link between power and benefits. The other charity can use its power to influence the nature or amount of benefits they receive from your charity. An example of a control relationship is where a charity establishes an incorporated society to run a second-hand shop on their behalf, with profits returning to the charity. Our example charity is not controlled by another registered charity, so I selected no for this question. Once you've answered all the questions on this page, you can continue to the next page, Financial Performance. You'll find all the information you need for this page and the rest of the form in your Tier 4 performance report that you've already completed. The fields in the annual return and the figures you enter for each one must match the performance report. If the fields do not match your performance report, you may have selected the wrong tier. When filling in the annual return form, you need to use whole figures rounded to the nearest dollar.
All right, I'll take it from here, Lex. Thank you. So we're using the example performance report we completed in our previous webinar for Athena After School Trust, and they received cash of $6,900 in fundraising. So that goes in the first line. They also received $13,000 in general grants and $3,000 in service delivery grants, $450 from the sale of goods and services, and $10 in interest. They did not receive any membership fees or any other cash that was not included. So we've entered 0 into these fields. For cash paid for operating activities, Athena After School Trust paid $300 for fundraising, $12,130 for costs relating to employees, and $200 for volunteer-related costs. They spent $2,250 for costs related to the sale of goods or services, and $650 for other costs related to delivering their charitable purpose. They also gave out $1,500 in grants and donations. No other cash was paid, not accounted for in these categories, so we've entered 0 in this field. They also did not pay any GST separately or receive a refund of GST, so 0 has been entered into this field as well. You will see that the total cash received from operating activities, total cash paid for operating activities, and the operating surplus and deficit have now automatically been calculated and are showing. These totals should match the totals in your performance report exactly. If they don't match, check that you have entered all the figures and that they are correct. For cash received from other activities, Athena After School Care Trust received $50 from the sale of an asset and $1,000 as a loan. They did not sell any investments, so 0 has been entered into that field. For cash paid for other activities, They paid $950 for the purchase of an asset and paid $1,000 to repay their loan. They did not purchase any investments, so zero has been entered there. Repayments of loans, zero. Oh, sorry, $1,000 for repayment of a loan and zero for income tax.
Thank you.
Once again, you'll see that the totals for each section have been automatically calculated, including an overall increase or decrease in cash for the year. These totals should match your performance report exactly. The last thing on this page is bank accounts and cash. Enter the total closing amount held in your organization's bank accounts, term deposits, and cash on hand. On your performance report, this will be the amount shown in total cash balances held. For Athena Trust, this is $5,430. This is true for them because this is their first year. So they started with cash of zero. This will likely be different for most charities who have operated in the previous year. Once all of the fields on the page have been filled in, including any zeros, and the increase or decrease in cash matches your performance report, you can click the Next button to continue to the next page of the annual return financial position. This page is about your charity's significant assets and liabilities. The information you need can be found in notes 6 and 7 of your completed performance report. Athena After School Care Trust has significant assets and liabilities, so we answer yes to this question. The charity was gifted a van, which they estimated to have a value of $10,000. So we enter this figure into the vehicle field. The charity does not own any other significant assets, so we put zero in those fields. Athena has no loans or borrowings because they repaid them, and they do not hold money on anyone's behalf, so we enter zero into these fields as well. Next section is where we upload our completed performance report or state that it will be sent in separately. Uploading the performance report directly is the easiest and quickest way to submit it, so we are going to select the first option. I would like to upload my performance report now. Click Browse to find the document on your computer and select it. Once we see the file name in the empty box, we click Upload to upload it. You can see now that the performance report has been successfully uploaded onto the annual return. If you choose the second option, that is to email or post your performance report, you will not be able to upload the performance report at all and will need to send it in separately, either by email or post. Please note, choosing this option will lead to a higher filing fee. Below your uploaded performance report is a checklist where you will confirm that the performance report you are providing has all of the required information. Please make sure the performance report you upload or send in has each required section and that each section is fully completed. Once the checklist is ticked, you can click the Next button to continue to the next page, Certification.
This page is where you confirm that all of the information in this annual return, including the attached performance report, is correct and that you're authorized by the charity to complete the annual return. Do this by ticking the box and typing in your first and last name into the first and last name fields. This is how the annual return is signed digitally. You must also state if you want to restrict information from the public register. If you choose this, You must provide a supporting document that shows restricting or withholding information is in the public's best interest, not just the charity's interests. Our example charity does not need to restrict or withhold any information from the public register, so we won't tick this box. And go straight to the next page, review and submit. On this page, you can see all of the information that you've entered into the annual return form and review it to check that it's correct. Click the arrows for each section to expand it and review the information. If any information is incorrect or needs to be changed, click the Edit button to go directly to that page of the form and make changes. Some key things to look out for are that everything is in whole dollars with no cents, and that all zeros have been included. You should also make sure your employee and volunteer numbers make sense for your activities. Once your annual return is complete and correct, click on the yellow Submit Your Annual Return button to submit the form to us at Charity Services. Please remember that once you submit your annual return, you will not be able to make any changes. This includes uploading any documents like your performance report. After you submit your annual return, you'll see a confirmation notice and you'll be advised if anything further is required. Charities with a total gross income of $10,000 or more must pay a filing fee, and your annual return is only complete when we have received and processed that fee. Full details of the amount and the account name and number will be visible on the screen. You can pay this by direct deposit or bank transfer. Information about how to pay can be found on our website and in an email we send you after you submit your annual return and performance report. Now that we've completed and submitted the annual return, we're going to stop sharing a screen and answer some questions. Please type your questions into the Q&A box if you haven't done so already. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. We just ask that you don't send questions specific to your charity. If you have specific questions, please send us an email or give us a call. Our contact information is on the slide. Okay, we've got a few questions in. The first question, for officer details, do we add a new trustee if this occurred after the balance date of this annual return? So when you're filling in the first half of the annual return, you're stating that your organization's information is correct up to the date that you're filling in the annual return. So contact information, primary contact, officers, these should be correct up to today, the day that you're doing it, even if it occurred after the balance date of your annual return. So yes, if there are any officers that are missing today when you fill in the form, add them now.
Our balance date is 31 December. Our chairperson has resigned, and one of the elected committee members will act as chairperson for the balance of this year. Do I need to prepare an update of details?
Yes. So within 3 months of any change happening, you need to advise us of the change to your details. Don't wait for an annual return. Just log into your dashboard and click on the Update Charity Details button that's next to the annual return button. Update the officer list there.
Do contracted staff fit under the paid employees' hours?
I believe so. Do you want to weigh in on that?
It really depends on what they're doing and how you use them within your organization. If they are contracted on a regular basis, are frequently there and are working, say, in administration of your charity, it probably would be more transparent to include them there. If they, say, are mowing the lawns or something like that, and they kind of fit more within a category of expenditure that's maintaining your charity, you might want to include it with that expenditure instead. Whatever's more transparent for that expenditure. What format documents are accepted for uploading?
Most formats, not pictures though. So PDF, Excel, Word, all of these work. The non-Microsoft versions of those files, I believe, also work. The most common is PDF, because that means when people download it to view it, they can't edit it. And most programs will allow you to save as PDF. So if you select Save As on your file, it'll ask you what kind of file type you want. Just click on that, find PDF in the drop-down menu, save it as a PDF. It's usually the easiest way to upload something that's finished. But the Excel template itself, the Excel file, will be totally fine. Where would depreciation for the van go in this statement?
Right, so Tier 4 only uses the cash basis of accounting, so there is no depreciation. If you do have depreciation in your financial statements or performance report that you have completed before you do this annual return, you're using Tier 3 likely. And so you should be using the Tier 3 standard for your performance report as well as for your annual return.
And I believe in our example, the van was donated, so they got the value as an estimate from looking at other comparable
They did.
vehicles.
Hi, how about if they are in the second year of operation? How can we reflect the beginning balance of bank and cash in the return? So the annual return isn't meant to completely emulate or replicate the performance report. We just want certain details. I know that can be quite confusing because it's taking most of the statement of financial performance from the performance report, but there is no number for the beginning cash within the annual return itself. We're just asking for what happened this year and what your final cash is.
Yeah, exactly. The performance report that is part of the annual return that you've already filled in has your opening balance. The annual return doesn't need that opening balance, it just needs the closing balance.
That's right.
Okay, we'll see if any more questions come through.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Does the secretary or other officer who retired at the AGM convened to approve the annual report subsequently file the return when no longer an officer?
So the person who's actually doing the filing, is simply who your charity decides should do it. It's often an administrative staff, someone who has the login and has access to the performance report, log into your dashboard and fill in the form. The signing and approving of it should be done by your current officers, though. So the performance report, when it's finalized and signed, that'll be your current officers. The person who's filling in the annual return form and uploading the performance report just needs to be authorized in whatever way that your charity decides to do that. Often charities will actually get lawyers and accountants to log in on their behalf and do that rather than being officers.
But if you have a new secretary, so it's already been approved at your AGM and signed, and then when you go to file the annual return, whoever's approved by your charity to certify the annual return, which could be your current secretary another officer, or just an administrative person who is authorized to do that.
Template for the performance report has several pages in the workbook, therefore is not able to be added in full as a PDF. How can we upload this?
It really depends on the version you're using. The previous version of the Tier 4 template
Had multiple
had
tabs.
multiple tabs.
Yeah.
If you have moved or if you do plan to move, and I highly recommend you do, it's much easier. It's all in one page. There's less to fill out. The new Tier 4 NFP standard, like I said, it's only one page. You can print it out as one page. I think it's kind of awkward. I don't really know how best to print out all the pages if you are using the former version.
Well, if you're trying to use an Excel spreadsheet that has multiple tabs, when you go print, you can select print to PDF, and then you can tick a box in Excel that says you want to print every single tab.
Oh, okay.
So it is an option.
Right.
But if you're reporting up to date at the moment and using the up-to-date standards, then the template we have is all in one page and much easier to do that.
That's right. If your year ends March 31 this year or after, you're required to use the new standard, which is the one page. Only those who are filing for the end of February, which is due at the end of next week, or previous, which is now overdue, they would be using the older version, although you still can use the new version no matter your date.
Yeah, you can opt up to the new version.
You can. If you wish to restrict the downloaded financial report, is this where you click restricted in the compliance page?
Yes. Any information that you want restricted from the public register must be declared on that certification page. Keep in mind, there is some information that by default is not published. So your primary contact, your officers' dates of birth and addresses, none of that is published ever. But if you need to restrict information like your performance report or names of officers for whatever reason, you tick that box in the certification page, you give a reason for why it's in the public interest to do so, and you state that on the form there. When it comes to us, it won't automatically be finalized. We'll review that request to restrict the information and correspond with you if we need to.
That's right. And please understand it is a request, and it may or may not be approved.
Yeah.
If a charity is not in operation until the end of March 2025, should I file only 0?
Yes. If your organization is registered with us, you must file every single year, even if you've had little to no financial activity or non-financial activity. If you're a registered charity, you must file every year.
And no matter your activity or lack of activity, a performance report is still required.
Yeah. Even if the answer is 0 across every single field, you still need to provide all the required information.
Do you include secretary treasurer duties as volunteer hours?
Yeah, if those people aren't paid for their duties, then yes, they're volunteers. Remember, that page is to capture everyone in your organization. If people are paid for their services or for the work they do for the charity, then they are paid employees, unless they're contractors like we talked about. If they're doing work for the charity and it is not paid, they are volunteers, and you must record them on that page.
Yes.
We changed our financial year end from 31 August to 31 December, and we'll be filing a 16-month annual return once for February, I believe. This change and adjusted filing has been confirmed via email. Do we need to add anything special to the annual return?
Not to the annual return, but that will be mentioned in your performance report.
Absolutely.
We may move to zero accounting in the future. Does that mean we have to use accrual accounting? It's very likely. I do understand that Zero has an option for cash-based reports, but I don't think they are capable of completing or printing out or having a template for cash-based performance reports. That is something to discuss with your representative at Zero Accounting, so that you can move up to the tier 3, because I do think they do have a tier 3 template, but certainly something to discuss with them.
And if you're concerned about making sure you have all the information in your report, download a copy of the blank template for the performance report and compare it to what what Xero is providing you, so you know if you're missing any information. We were expecting to report under tier 4, but have managed funds. Does that mean we have to report under tier 3?
Well, that's a more complicated question. If you have a specific to your organization, you should just email us and
Yeah.
we can answer.
Send us an email, info@charities.govt.nz.
Yeah, with a little bit more detail.
Absolutely.
If we pay some folk to run activities just for a 1-week annual festival, are they paid employees?
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. It depends on the contract you have with them. If you are contracting them as employees, so for example, would you provide them leave? Would you pay tax? All of the signs of an employee, then yes, I would expect you are likely paying them as contractors, and that is the cost of running those activities.
If a product is sold as a fundraiser, how is this reported?
Again, that's quite a specific question. You might want to email us that one.
Potentially sale of assets, depending on the product.
This is a webinar for annual returns. So if you have an accounting question, please email it through.
If we're changing from an incorporated society to a trust after the financial year ends, do we show the zero bank balance for the society? All funds have been transferred to the trust, but we're still waiting for this to be formally acknowledged with the CC number transfer. If your organization is a registered charity and you're changing structure, your CC number does not change and your registration history continues. So if you're already registered and you're simply changing structure, you need to include your previous year's balances in your performance report and annual return and use that to create your report for the next year. We have a lot of volunteers to do cleaning or to assist with our daily temple puja. What is the best way to get the volunteers' time? When you're managing volunteers, it's often really good to have a logbook of when a person starts and when they end for the day, how often they're interacting with the organization. Ultimately, it just comes down to record keeping. If you're administering volunteers, always keep really, really good records of who's involved, what they did, how long they did it for. Even if it's just a signing in at the start of the day and signing out at the end of the day, just to capture that time. When you're reporting the volunteer hours in the annual return, it's for the whole year, it's not an average. So that number really does need to be accurate and capture everyone across the whole financial year.
Yeah, for example, the charity where I volunteer has over 150 volunteers throughout any given week. So there's a sign-in sheet when we walk in the door with the date. We enter our name, why we are there, and when we started. And when we leave, we write down when we left and then put a little signature by that. And the volunteer coordinator then takes that sheet every day and logs it either into a spreadsheet or however she keeps that record. And then over time, she can then count up those hours. It's really an easy way for you to keep track of who's there. And it's also for health and safety, so you know who's been on site, and if something happens, you know when they were there and when they left.
What if we can't get the performance report done because of reasons out of our control? If you're unable to file by your due date, get in touch with us. Send us an email, info@charities.govt.nz, with as much detail as possible. Obviously, it is a requirement to file every year, but if there's a particular situation that you're working through, the only way we can help you is if you contact us, and if we can help you, we'll do so there.
Yep. Where do you find the new Tier 4 performance report to complete online?
On our website, charities.govt.nz, under reporting standards, there's a section for Tier 4. Just click on that, scroll down. There is a now pretty clearly marked section for the new reporting standards and a link to download it directly. You can also download it directly from the External Reporting Board, XRB, who created the standards and the template. That performance report template comes from them. Just Google XRB. They've got the standards under not-for-profit.
It's accounting. You'll find it under accounting standards and then not-for-profit and then Tier 4. And it will have not only the standard, but the available templates. We have changed our rules this year. Do we do that now or wait until 2026?
If your rules have changed from the rules that we have on the register, you need to tell us as soon as possible. Any change to your registered information, including your rules, you must tell us within 3 months of the change occurring, or within 3 months of you becoming aware of the change. So if your rules have already changed and that's final and complete, all you need to do is tick that box, state what the change was, and upload the new document and submit it to us on an annual return if you're already completing it, or on an update details form if you're not yet ready to do your annual return.
Why is date of birth important information required? I
We,
assume that's for officers?
yeah, for officers, you need to provide a date of birth. There are age requirements for being an officer of a charity. I can't quote the relevant sections off the top of my head, but I believe
At
they
least
need to
18.
be either over 16 or over 18 to be an officer of a charity. So you need to provide that to show that they are meeting that requirement. Why do volunteer hours need to be accurate? Volunteer hours is something that's reported by a number of different organizations, including Volunteering New Zealand, and making sure that information is accurate is really the only way to ensure that all of that yearly reporting for the entire volunteer sector is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it's important information. This goes on our register. So all of the users who are interested in your charity specifically, but also charities across New Zealand or in particular sectors, they can understand, uh, how that charity is run and potentially how their money is being used. So that's, part of the financial stuff. But it's really good to know if they want to give money to a charity, that's part of the information for them to say, right, you have a couple of volunteers. Are they actually doing stuff for you? What are they doing? How much are they doing? I want to give you more money so you can support these volunteers.
Yeah, absolutely. And also worth keeping in mind that the information on the register doesn't just sit there to be on the register. The register itself is used by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
Funders,
Absolutely. People who are doing funding for you,
the public.
the public, anyone who wants to donate, they will have a look at your organization and your annual returns and your performance reports and see how much money's coming in, how much is going out, where and how you're spending it, staff, volunteers, all of that information. It's not just that you have to report it, it's that the reported information is there available for people who then use it for a lot of different things.
That's right.
Okay, thanks everyone for your questions. Remember, you can rewatch this webinar again at any time, as the recording will be available on our website. We hope that attending today's session was useful to you, and you now understand a little bit more about completing the annual return online. If you weren't able to have your question answered, please contact us by email or phone. Thanks for attending.